This is Terrence Andre Banks with Information Age Financial Solutions, coming to you from with an interesting article I found in the New York Times. The mainstream media is becoming, actually starting to report on some actually really good news here. Too little, too late, bankruptcy booms amongst older Americans. Now, for the baby boom population, this has been, I would say, the most luckiest generation in our time, because they've had access to employment, they have access to pensions, but they're now, because of what's the new economy is changing and the cracks that's coming because of the pension plans that was promised to them can't be maintained, as well as the life of inflation that we've been living on the fixed income. It's really starting to take its toll. As always, I'm going to put the link inside the description. Encourage you to take a look at this when you get a chance, but I'm going to dive right into the article. Lawrence Sedati, a 74-year-old former carpenter, said he lost his health insurance about 2 years ago after his union changed the eligibility requirements. He and his wife filed for bankruptcy after living off of their credit cards for a time. Their financial difficulty has drained them everything out of me, he said. For a rapidly growing share of older Americans, traditional ideas about life and retirement are being upended by a dismal reality: bankruptcy. The signs of potential trouble: vanishing pensions, soaring medical expenses, inadequate savings have been building for years. Now new research sheds light on the scope of the problem. The rate of people 65 and older filing for bankruptcy is 3 times that it was in 1991. The study found, and the same group accounts for a far greater share of all filers. Driving the surge, the study suggests a 3-decade shift of financial risk from government and employers to individuals who are bearing a greater responsibility for their own financial well-being as a social safety net shrinks. The transfers come in the form of, among other things, longer waits for full Social Security benefits, the replacement of employer-provided pensions with 401k savings plans, and more out-of-pocket spending on health care. Declining incomes, whether in retirement or leading up to it, compound the challenge. Cheryl McLeod of Las Vegas filed for bankruptcy in January after struggling to keep up with her mortgage payments and other expenses. "I'm 70 and working for less money than I've ever did in my life," she said. "This life stuff happens." Now, this is interesting because she still has a mortgage at the age of 70, and she's still working. That's interesting. This is an interesting advocate, because a lot of people are expecting that they're going to be able to live in retirement, just not. And she's able to continue working, but even then, she still had to file for bankruptcy. As the study from the Consumer Bankruptcy Project explains, older people whose finances are precarious have few places to turn. When the costs of aging are offloaded into a population that simply does not have access to adequate resources, something has to give, the study says. And older Americans turn to what little is left of their social safety net, bankruptcy court. "You can manage okay until there's a little stumble," said Deborah Thorne, an associate professor of sociology at the University of Idaho, and the author of the study. Doesn't even take a big thing. The forces at work affect many Americans, but older people are often less able to weather them, according to Professor Thorne and her colleagues in the study. Finding and keeping one job is hard enough for an older person. Taking on another to pay unexpected bills is almost unfathomable. Bankruptcy can offer a fresh start for people who need one, but for older Americans, it's too little, too late, the study says. By the time they file, their wealth has vanished, and they simply do not have enough years to get back on their feet. Now, could you imagine being at these ages and having to file bankruptcy? It's just a sadder state in the economy that we're moving to a different time, and we haven't seen this wealth disparity between the rich and those who have not since the Gilded Age. It's almost over 100 years, and this is becoming more and more of an issue. And again, it's still not getting the attention. I'm glad the New York Times is reporting on it. But as mentioned, most people have baby boomers in their families, and these people who have actually helped out their family in many ways. So if they're beginning to squeeze and they're filing for bankruptcy, what does that mean for the populations that's coming after it? Just pose that question every time I do different studies on baby boomers and pull up articles like that. The data gathered by researchers is stark. From February 2013 to November 2016, there were 3.6 bankruptcy filers per 1,000 people, 65 to 74. In 1991, there were 1.2. Look at this, and I love a little chart here. Bankruptcy filings per 1,000 people by age is down dramatically in most of the population. Between the 45 and 64, there's minus 2%. 55 to 64 is up 66%, and 65 to 74 up 204%. Not only are more older people seeking relief through bankruptcy, but they also represent a widening slice of all filers. 12.2% of filers are now 65 or older, up from 2.1% in 1991. The jump is so pronounced, the study says, that the aging of the baby boomer generation cannot explain it. Although the actual number of older people filing bankruptcy was relatively small, about 100,000 a year during the period in question, The researchers said it signaled that there were many more people in financial distress. The people who show up in bankruptcy are always the tip of the iceberg, said Robert M. Loyles, a law professor at the University of Illinois and another author of the study. The next generation nearing retirement age is also filing for bankruptcy in greater numbers, and the average age of fillers is rising, the study found. Given the rate of increase, Professor Thorne said the only explanation that makes sense are structural shifts. Ms. McLeod said she had managed to get by for a while after separating from her husband several years ago. Eventually, though, she struggled to make ends meet on her income alone. She fell behind on her mortgage payment. She collects a small Social Security check and works as an adult daycare center for people with intellectual disabilities and mental health problems. For $8.75 an hour, she makes sure clients participate in daily activities, calms when they are irritated, and tries to understand what they need when they have trouble expressing themselves. When I moved here from Los Angeles, I was wondering why all of these older people working in convenience stores and fast food restaurants, she said. It's because they don't make enough in retirement to support themselves. Mrs. McLeod says she hoped that filing for bankruptcy would help her catch up on the mortgage so she could stay in her home. I'm too old to move out of here, she said. I'm trying to stay stable. Wow. Medicare beneficiaries out-of-pocket spending by age. Look at the numbers that dramatically increased for that age population. Medicare benefits, and I just love the charts. I'm kind of brushing through this, but again, encourage you to take a look at this at your leisure. If you got loved ones, let them look at this as well. The Bankruptcy Project is a long-running effort now led by Professor Thorne, Professor Lawless, Pamela Foley, a law professor of Indiana University, and Catherine Porter, a law professor at the University of California, Irvine. The project, which is financed by the universities, collects and analyzes court records on a continued basis and follows up with written questionnaires. The latest study, which was posted online on Sunday, has been submitted to an academic journal for peer review. It's based on a sample of personal bankruptcy case and questionnaires completed by 895 fillers ages 19 to 92. The questionnaire asks filers what led them to seek bankruptcy protection. Much like the broader population, people 65 and older usually cited multiple factors. About 3 in 5 said unmanageable medical expenses played a role. A little more than 2/3 cited a drop in income. Nearly 3/4 put some blame on hounding by debt collectors. The study does not delve into those underlying factors, but separate data provides some insight. The median household led by someone 65 or older has liquid savings of $60,000 in 2016, according to Employment Benefit Research, where the bottom 25% of households had saved at most $3,260. That doesn't provide much of a financial cushion for a catastrophic health problem. Old Americans typically turn to Medicare to pay their medical bills, but gaps in coverage, higher premiums, and requirements that patients should shoulder some costs force many lower income beneficiaries to spend more of their own income on those bills, the Kaiser Family Foundation found. By 2013, the average Medicare beneficiary's out-of-pocket spending on health care consumed 41% of the average Social Security check, according to Kaiser, which also estimated the figure would rise. Most people are also entering their later years carrying debt. For many of them, at least some of their debt is a mortgage, roughly 41% in 2006 compared with 21% in 1999, according to an Urban Institute analysis. And those who are carrying debt into retirement are carrying more than members of earlier generations, analysts by Employment Benefit Research Institute found. Perhaps unsurprising, lowest income households led by individuals 55 or older carry the highest debt loads relative to their income. More than 13% of such households face debt payments that equal more than 40% of their income, nearly double the percentage of such families in 1991, the Employment Benefit Institute found. Now, when I used to do some work at as a financial counsel, financial credit, housing, and student loan counsel as a nonprofit, I used to see countless baby boomers. That was actually the largest population that would come in the office. So these debts it's not something that seems unfamiliar to me. It's actually pretty commonplace. Now, I haven't done that kind of work in some years now, but that was when I was doing it. It's still, I just was amazed to see that many people facing that much financial issues, especially in the amount of credit card debts that they had based on the fixed income. They were receiving pensions. Some of them were still working, and they had pretty good pensions at that time. So just to show you that more than that time, let me continue on with the article. Old America's finances are also being strained by the needs of those around them. A little more than a third of older filers who answered the research question said they're helping others, like children or older parents, had contributed to seeking their bankruptcy protection. As I mentioned before, these generations helped out they help out their family. Some parents, Mr. Stearns said, had co-signed loans for $10,000 or $20,000 for adult children and suddenly could no longer afford them. When you're living on $2,000 a month, and that includes Social Security, and you have rent and savings are minuscule, it is extremely difficult to recover something like that, he said. Others have co-signed their children's student loans, which is never a good idea. I never saw parents with student loans 20 or 30 years ago, Mr. Stearns said. It's not uncommon to see student loans of $100,000, he added. Then you see parents who have guaranteed some of these loans. They are no longer working, and they have these student loans that are difficult, if not impossible, to pay or discharge bankruptcy. And these are the kids' loans. Keith Morris, chief executive of Elder Law of Michigan, which runs a legal hotline for other adults, said that processing bankruptcy was a regular topic for his callers. They worked all of their lives and did what they're supposed to do, he said. And through circumstances like a late life divorce or death of a spouse or having to raise grandchildren, have put them in a situation where they are not able to make the bills. For Lawrence Adetta, a 70-year-old farmer carpenter now living in Las Vegas, the problem began when he lost his health insurance about 2 years ago. He said he had only been on disability since 1991, when a devil-packed 12-foot drywall fell on his head at work. After his union, New York City District Council competence changed the eligibility requirements for his medical, dental, and prescription drug insurance, he lost his coverage. Mr. Seder, who has Parkinson's disease, said his medical expenses had risen exponentially. The medication that helped reduce the shaking, Parkinson's, rose to $1,100 every 3 months from $70, Mr. said. I haven't taken my medication in 3 months since I can't afford it, he added. He said he and his wife, who has cancer, filed for bankruptcy in June after living off their credit cards for a time. Their financial difficulty, he said, has drained everything out of me. Again, this article is definitely one to pay attention to. I've kind of read it quickly. Take a look at it. If you have loved ones who are functioning as baby boomers or older, please, the times are changing. We need to get prepared for that. We need to get our mindset right and start working together as a collective whole to weather through the storm. So if this video has been any benefit to you, please subscribe, leave some comments. And until my next video, I'm out.